Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode, I don't know, what are we on, 109, something like that, of DevChatter. I'll have to check. I think I put it in the title of this. But welcome, everybody. Hopefully you are having a pretty good Saturday. Whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, where you are, hopefully it's a good one. S&B, Coated Beer, Katrina, Wheatlaw, welcome. Glad to see some familiar faces here in the chat. Oh, Katrina! You are out of your egg, so that's awesome. Brave Cobra, hey, welcome. So today, as many of you probably know, is our Solid Saturday stream. So we have been dedicating our Saturdays to reinforcing good principles that we think are important for all of the developers in our community to understand and work well with. We obviously started with the solid principles, and we are actually on our last solid principle today. So today is the 5th episode of the series, putting us at the Dependency Inversion Principle. We are going to continue the series. As I've told a bunch of people, my plan for this weekend is to start scheduling the future streams that we're going to have. So I'm going to schedule out our new Solid Saturday episodes for the next few Saturdays. And I'm also going to schedule a few of our Learn to Code in C# series again. So we haven't had one of those in a while. I am going to bring that event back. I just posted a link to the event there in chat. We are going to make sure that we get those videos out so that we can do some more beginner level stuff. My plan for the Learn to Code series is that we are going to have every once in a while a super beginner episode where we are expecting people to come fresh, not knowing programming at all. But then the other episodes, we're going to focus on some concept that's beginner level. So for example, one of our streams, we just focused on discussing all the various types of looping mechanics that are available in C#. So all the different ways that you can repeat code, which is actually fairly valuable even for professional developers. I give the example of the do-while loop. Very few developers actually use the do-while loop in their code, so it's useful to get a refresher on these kinds of things because a lot of times we haven't used it in so long that we don't remember exactly how those work, so it's nice to get to those every once in a while. Okay, so last couple of things that we need to mention before we go ahead and get started. For anyone who doesn't know, my name is Brendan. I go by Brendonius on the internet most of the time. This channel here is DevChatter. It includes both me and all of you. And the reason being that this is very much a discussion, so if you have questions, ideas, suggestions, anything like that, we are all working together here, so chime in the chat with any thoughts you have as we're going along. Do hype while true. Exactly, Will. Okay, so I need to pull my slide up. I apologize, I was a few minutes late today, which of course I got called on. I think I was only like 4 minutes late, but usually people are like, wait, what? You're not right on time. I have a small human. Without getting into more details, I had a diaper-related thing at 2 minutes before the stream that we had to deal with. So, apologize for the red that you're about to see here. There we go. So that is a strong color change, so I apologize about that. I meant to start the stream on this color, but I also didn't want to be late getting things running. So, there we go. Cat did not eat my alarm clock, although he is here right now. He just showed up. He noticed I was streaming and he said, hey, I want to get on the stream. So we fully expect him to cause a couple of issues. Still not sure why we don't have a loop operation. Basically a while true, but then without any breaking condition. Oh yeah, Wheatlaw. That would be an interesting one. Okay, so today, on Solid Saturday, we are going to talk about the Dependency Inversion Principle. So, the Dependency Inversion Principle, being the 5th of the principles, you would think would mean that the Dependency Inversion Principle is the one that relies on the foundation of all of the others being mentioned. But, interestingly enough, it's the exact opposite. So, I covered solid in order S-O-L-I-D because that's the way it's written, not because it's necessarily the best way to explain it. In fact, I would probably recommend explaining the dependency inversion principle first. Maybe single responsibility. Both are easily understood, but the challenge is to implement them. Almost every other principle we used relies on the dependency inversion principle. Yeah, oh, that's a very great point, S&B. For anyone who's looking over in the chat, S&B is pointing out that if you write solid S-O-L-I-D, writing it down like that, D is the foundation, and that is a fantastic way of explaining it. That is an awesome description there, S&B. So the dependency inversion principle really is the foundation of the rest of solid. So this is actually what one of the big reasons why we have been using the open-close principle. It depends on dependency inversion. The single responsibility principle doesn't work well without the dependency inversion principle. We use interface segregation to make sure that as we invert our dependencies, we do it in a nice way. And I'm going to explain what all these are then. But then S requires the other... Don't worry about that, Wheatlaw. Nice. Glad you're here, Copious. Welcome, everybody. Thanks, Will Bennett. Okay, so the concept of dependency inversion says that abstractions should not depend on details. The details should instead depend on the abstractions. So what that means, to get into simple terms here, is we need some kind of abstraction, a simple way of thinking of this thing. That's what our abstraction is. And in a lot of our code, that's going to mean you want to depend on something like an interface, not on a concrete class. And that's practically what we're basically saying by this. So you've seen this in our code, in our projects here on the stream, and you've seen this in other people's code all the time. And it's important to know that this is the reason why we're doing these things. So one thing that I think a lot of developers miss when, especially early on in their careers when they're learning about stuff, is anytime someone tells you, hey, this is the way you do it, you always want to, even if you don't know it right away, you eventually want to figure out the reason why you're doing it that way. And the dependency inversion principle is the principle that explains why you do things the way that you do in modern development. So let's take a look at this. I need to click on that button to skip to the next slide. So I love these little slides, as a lot of you know. The dependency inversion principle. This is a nice example of how the dependency inversion principle works. We look at this and we say, would you solder a lamp directly to your electrical wiring in a wall? And so the idea is, we don't take any electrical device that we have in our house and connect it directly to the wires in our wall. The reason why we don't do that is we have these electrical outlets. We have plugs. This is a US style plug. Obviously, if you don't live in the US, yours look a little different, but the concept is still the same. There's some kind of interface that has been defined so that we can say, no, the electrical wiring in your house, however it's set up, it doesn't matter. The electrical wiring in your device, your lamp, your television, your computer, it doesn't matter how either of those two are set up. The point is, you end up with a plug and an outlet, and they connect. And since both of them implemented the abstraction, they depended on the abstraction of this outlet, of this plug, this system, you can just connect, disconnect, plug in something else all day long, and you don't have to worry about it. Everything that you buy within your country with your stuff, that is what you do. So that's the concept, is we want to make sure that we depend on a common interface, a common abstraction. So connect things based on an abstraction, an interface, instead of hard connecting them, instead of taking a dependency on it. So that's the idea. Glad you guys like the images here. So these are from our software craftsmanship calendars that we used to make. So this is actually an outlet that is in the house of our designer's parents. So like, oh yeah, you've got like a soldering iron. It's like, okay, cool. So they went, took that picture. Worked out pretty nicely. And yes, S&B, there are actually a lot of patterns that we use that help us to implement the dependency inversion principle. The adapter pattern, the facade pattern, the strategy pattern, all of these different patterns, these design patterns that we use in programming, a lot of them, the whole purpose of them is to help us follow principles like the dependency inversion principle. Okay, let's take a look at our next slide, where we are going to talk about what a dependency actually is. So, what is a dependency? What are these dependencies that we have in our code that we need to be worried about? So, a dependency is, I mean, as the name suggests, anything we depend on. But that doesn't really explain it. So, in order to give you a better idea of what we're talking about when we say taking a dependency on something, these are examples of some common dependencies that we have in our code. One of the biggest ones, and I actually want to focus on this one more today than I did many years ago because there's a cool thing that I'm going to mention. So the first one on this list is the framework. So the framework that you've taken a dependency on. If you're a .NET developer, you probably chose the .NET Framework or .NET Core. So if you write in C#, you probably have this dependency. If you are writing something in Java, for example, they are running on the, they also have a framework, they're, the Java runtime environment, blah, blah, blah. You're coding against a set of, a platform that you're really building for is the idea. If you're ASP.NET development, you're depending on ASP.NET. These frameworks exist all over the place, but there's a cool thing about this one that I'm going to talk about after we mention the others. So the next dependency that we usually have is we've got dependencies on our libraries. We might pull them from NuGet, we might have a library reference that we've made inside of a lib folder, but these are going to be things like a dependency on JSON.NET, or maybe you're using XUnit to do your unit testing, or you're using NUnit. You might have a dependency, Newtonsoft JSON, thank you. And you might have a dependency on any package that does any kind of thing. Maybe you want to improve your link, so you add it in a library that adds some extension methods to link. It doesn't really matter what it is. More link, as Wheatlaw mentions. And so the idea is, there are all these kinds of packages that can help you out doing stuff. But each one, keep in mind, is a dependency. So it's something that your code relies on. It makes it harder to change. You're relying on that now. So dependencies are not necessarily, and I should also mention, dependencies are not necessarily bad, but what we try to do is we try to keep them from intermingling in our code too much where we can, and we decide which ones we take. So the frameworks, for example, we usually just accept that dependency and say, hey, I'm doing .NET development, I'm going to depend on the .NET framework, so I'm not worried about .NET being in my code. Another library, as Wheatlaw mentions, could be Entity Framework. And Entity Framework is a library that I do keep at arm's length because I have, for example, switched projects from NHibernate to Entity Framework to Dapper. I've changed out my data access. And when I do have it separated, there are some nice benefits there. And then I also don't end up essentially coding my system to the way that Entity Framework works. So it's kind of nice that way when you do it. The next dependency, this is one that usually people do think of, is local resources. So things like accessing your file system. Because then you can't move a project if you cared where a file was, for example, if you used a full path to that file. Additionally, even if you use relative paths, you run into the problem of you rely on that file to actually be there every time you run it. So an example being a configuration file or something like that, which you can make sure is there, but again, that's something you're now relying on being there, so you have to consider that when you create it. We also take dependencies on our database. This is probably the biggest one, and the first one that people learn about when they're learning how to get rid of their dependencies is they learn that the database is a strong dependency, and the idea here is you can't rely on the database to have the data you expect it to have. By their very nature, databases change their data. So that's another one. And yes, copious. I didn't mention the things like whether you run on Windows or Linux or something like that. And for example, the .NET Core people are now cross-platform, but not .NET Framework. If you took that framework dependency, you also likely took the dependency on Windows, except in the case of Mono. But there's those ideas as well. The system clock is actually one of the ones that people don't usually realize. So the system clock is actually one that a lot of people miss, and that is because of the way it works, sometimes it's hard to test your code because something needs to work in Rocketman. Absolutely, you can ask that question, and you can ask it in Discord, as Wheatlaw suggested also, but you can ask it in chat. But if you ask it in Discord, someone else could answer also. So system clock has the weird dependency of time. So it'd be difficult to unit test if you needed to unit test in the evening, for example, or you needed to unit test only on a weekend. So obviously system clock, so if you used like datetime.now in C#, that's the one we're talking about. The last one's network resources, calling out to web APIs, maybe your program notifies people by sending out an email, those sorts of things. And then the one that people get tripped up by the most, objects. So this is the one that's the trickiest a lot of times to extract. Anytime you use the new keyword in your code, you have said explicitly, I'm taking a dependency on this object I am creating. There are some cases where that's not so bad. For example, native types, like if you just create a string in your code, that's not usually a problem. But if you new up a new complex class from your domain, that is taking a strong dependency on that other class. And then static methods, you guys have also probably learned about that one. So whenever you call a static method, the problem is you've said, hey, I'm depending on that static class and its static method, and you can't really get rid of it. Now, I've been focusing on these concepts as they relate to C#, but this actually applies to any object-oriented language, not just C#. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of this list here, which this slide took me longer than I wanted to, which is why this set of slides that we're doing today is much shorter than last week's, the weeks before, etc. Because this one slide, I put too much stuff on it. But anyway, so the top one, frameworks. I mentioned that .NET Framework and .NET Core were two frameworks that a C# developer might be depending on. Now, if we back up for a second, 2 slides back, and we go and we take a look at the beginning of this, what did we say? We said abstractions should not depend on details. Details should depend on abstractions. What we do when we look at this now, so think for a moment. I said we might take a dependency on .NET Framework or .NET Core. We now have an option of an abstraction instead of .NET Framework or .NET Core. We can now depend on .NET Standard. And that means that instead of depending on the concrete framework of .NET Framework or .NET Core, we can now depend on the abstraction, the .NET Standard. So that's the really, really neat part that we've actually got in C# is we've managed to allow ourselves to remove our framework dependency finally. And now it is still like we're still depending on something, but it is more abstract. Our code could now target .NET Framework, .NET Core. It could go on Xamarin if we depend on standards. So that's the really cool part. Okay, sorry about that. Rexy, hey, welcome. Mark, hey, how's it going? Anybody else? People's classes, you don't understand those things, but you have a problem not worry. Yes, Rocketman. So that is actually one of the biggest challenges. So Rocketman's question is about once you understand something, how do you actually get like testing it and trying it? And without distracting too much from what we're doing here, one of the big things I would do is I would recommend you look up some other non-tutorials, but look up what are called programming exercises or programming katas. Take a look at websites like Coding Game or Code Wars and things like that, and you'll be able to find sample projects where you can actually work on those. So hopefully that answers your question, Rocketman, and let's jump back in. So you'd appreciate a lot more detail on how best to use the various .NET Standard versions. S&B. Yeah, so I, a while back, did an episode where we talked about the various different frameworks. So the difference between framework, core, and standard in .NET today. We did that months ago at this point, and that video can be found on our YouTube page. However, I do want to record just a video section that is just on that difference, just to explain that piece. I will probably put that as a video on Twitch or YouTube, and I may run that as what's called a premiere here on Twitch, which means it'll be a running video. And the reason I want to do it that way is because that is a concept that I think would be really valuable to just have an explanation of. And so I'll do that one, record it, and just put that up. Okay, so that is my plan. All right. Next slide, please, Brendan. So the last thing, and this actually is just going to be our ending slide before we go take a look at actual code here today. The way that we fix our code to start following the Dependency Inversion Principle literally is we start injecting dependencies. And there are three main ways that we inject dependencies, and that is through constructor injection, parameter injection, and property injection. And I recommend the use of them in that order. So constructor injection meaning the most important one. Parameter injection is actually useful, but not in the way that most people think it is. So Copious is suggesting not to use that one, but I'm actually going to explain when you should use it because there is actually a point for it. And Will Bennett, .NET Standard is not just for DLLs, but yes, it's primarily going to be used by people building libraries. So your class library will probably depend on .NET Standard, whereas your web project will depend on .NET Core or .NET Framework. So constructor injection means the constructor of your object should take in all the parameters that you need. Parameters, yeah, only slightly confusing. So any requirements that you have in order for your class to run should come in through the constructor, and 90% of the time that's the right way to do it. There are a couple of cases where you don't want to do it that way. Parameter injection means your method is going to have some parameters and you're going to take in something. Now, for parameter injection, I recommend you try to avoid passing in parameters that are full objects. Try to make your parameter injection be what we call value objects. So that means the whole point of that object is basically just to store values. So examples for that are things like you might pass in a date, or you might pass in a string, or if I'm calling something and I need to pass in let's say I'm calling a method that sends email. I might send in the email object. That is a form of injection. So that's the concept there. Constructor injection is not necessarily constructors, just like functions. Yeah. So Wheatlaw's pointing out like one specific, some more technical things about some of this, but keep in mind that you don't actually, so you can understand this concept without getting into all the possible details of these. Okay, hang on. Let me check out chat because there are a few questions in here. You mean higher order functions or factory methods? Copious, I think he's talking about that basic concept. Okay, so the last thing there is property injection. So property injection means you use the setter on a property and you assign that value. Now that is the one that you should use the absolute least. Only use property injection if you absolutely need to. Otherwise, you are much better off finding a better way to get your dependencies injected. Let's take a look at what our code has in terms of dependency injection and some of these basic concepts. So, if I take a look at... one thing I should have mentioned in slides. One of the concepts, where should you wire up your dependencies, is one of the big questions that people are going to ask. And the short answer is, you want to wire them up either in an Ioc container, which, if you don't know what that is, an Ioc container is basically how to explain it? It's a class whose job it is to determine which dependencies to provide when dependencies are needed. So its whole job is to just manage dependencies. That's all it does. It says, oh, you needed this interface? Okay, this class is the one that I'm currently giving out for that, and I'm giving out a new one every time. And so that's the job of the Ioc containers, basically to know that kind of stuff and to provide that details. So yeah, as people mentioned, it's the Ioc container basically just gives you your dependencies. The IOC stands for inversion of control. So that is actually referring to the concept of dependency inversion, which is what we're talking about here. So it's the idea that we have inverted it, so instead of a class creating its own objects that it needs, it is depending on someone else to give them to it. So it's saying, hey, instead of me creating these myself, I'm just going to go to you and say, hey, which objects do I need? Okay, thank you. And then continue on with your work. So that's the idea. S&B, no. So we sort of do take a dependency on that. But the key point is that we only take a dependency on the Ioc container at the top level. We don't take that dependency throughout our code, and that's the important part. Yes, see, as Will Bennett said, we depend on it for the app, but not for the individual parts of the app, and that is important. So if you look at it in our code, in our startup method, so startup inside of C# is where we end up with a lot of our dependencies on things. And you'll see right off the bat, we set up our autofac container. And this is actually what does our IOC work inside of our DevChatter bot project. We have this container builder that we use, and this, we wire it up with all our dependencies. So we come down and we say simple things sometimes like, where's a good example? Right here. Those are actually confusing and difficult, so I'm not going to explain those ones. This one. So if we take a look at this, this says, hey, I want you to know about this type, and I want you to implement it as its interface, which means I want you to say, when someone calls your interface, give them this object. And that's what this is saying to do. So we then told our Ioc container this. Now, I talked about the complex part of using an Ioc container, but I will point out that you do not need to use an Ioc container for this. You can start out simply. So if you have a very small project, you can do something like, new Twitch chat client, right? And then when you create your other object, you can pass this in. And so the idea is you've kept all your dependencies in one place at the beginning of your code. So even though you are just creating objects right off the bat, the idea is you create them at the beginning and you pass them into other objects. So this still has a dependency, and we'll show that concept in a second. But that's one of the ways you can do it. The other way, if you don't have an Ioc container, is what we call it poor man's dependency injection. And it's not great, but if you for some reason can't have an Ioc container or don't want one for some other reason, you can still get around it, and I will show you how you would do that. Does this have a dependency on something? Yes, it's got plenty of dependencies. So you might do something like this. I need these 3 pieces. Well, what I can do in order to get them is this. I can make another constructor, and we call this the poor man's dependency injection constructor. It might look like this. And then what we can do is this. We can say, when this constructor's called, just call my other constructor. We're going to open it up, and we're going to say, yep, pass in one of those, and then pass in one of those, and this, and then we need to pass in one of those, right? Just need something else. Oh, yeah, needs a new logger factory. Yuck. Okay, so it's not pretty, but we call this poor man's dependency injection because it can get you dependency injection if you need it. So this is what it looks like, is you just new up your stuff right here. Now, why might you do this? There is actually an important time when you need to do this, and that is if your objects are getting serialized or initialized in such a way where you need an empty constructor. So if something requires that you have an empty constructor for your code, and you can't use dependency inversion for it, this is one of the ways to do it, is to essentially make this available. There's also some other patterns called the service locator pattern that you can use, but I recommend caution there. And the reason I do, and I'm not actually even going to explain the service locator pattern, is because a lot of people, when they dig into the service locator pattern, and since I don't want to do a whole episode on it, they don't use that one correctly. And so because the service locator pattern, because of the way it's designed, can actually make your code worse in terms of dependency inversion, I'm going to recommend against using it until you go and learn it really well. So make sure any resources where you learn service locator are very, very good. Yeah, and so Copious is mentioning that service locator is an anti-pattern, and the reason why is because if you don't use it exactly correctly, it's detrimental to your project. So that's why we lump it in as an anti-pattern. So that's the idea, is like it's dangerous. So it's a pattern, it has value, it is useful, but if you mess it up, it's really bad. Because you're basically you're taking a really strong dependency on something that gives you your other dependencies. So remember we mentioned when we talked about our Ioc container that our application depends on it, but not all the objects throughout our application. That's the difference, is the service locator pattern is going to have all of your objects dependent, or at least a lot of them depending on the service locator. So that's the problem with it. Okay, let me make sure I did not make massive changes to our code here. Those are bigger changes than I'd like. We're going to discard those. Okay. In my showing of examples there. Fuel stable. Perhaps I mentioned it, but dependency injection doesn't need any containers or locators. A hassle wiring everything up from the top down, but doable. Yes, so as Fuel stable mentioned there, I did bring it up. When we were in here, I did comment that you can create everything in order inside of your main method. So your main method in your program, or your startup method if you're in like an ASP.NET application, for example, something like that. You have a startup class, you have your program with your main method. That's where you sometimes do the wiring up of your dependencies. And that might just mean you create all the objects in the correct order and basically construct everything your program needs to run. And so that's sort of what you can do to just create it without an Ioc container. I actually start nearly all of my projects that way without wiring in the Ioc container, and then when I get to the point of needing the Ioc container, I add it in. Your Twitch client is a dependency as well. Yes, it is, Copious, but the container doesn't care about the order of creation. You don't need to worry about... Yes, exactly. So one of the advantages of using an Ioc container is that you only mildly have to worry about having things in the correct order, because the Ioc container will only create the objects when you need them. So that's the idea. Okay. Oh, and many of you will be glad to know it's Pepsi. Okay. Yeah, sorry, Wheatlall. We're not starting any wars here. This is just the one I drink. They're all good. I drink this and Coke on the stream all the time. And sometimes tea. But that'll be more in the winter when it's colder. I'll have a nice warm drink. Okay, what else did I need to talk about in terms of dependencies? Oh, yes. So I mentioned that clock is, your system clock is a dependency that we take on in our projects. So anytime you call date time datetime.now or datetime.utc now, that is a dependency you have taken on your project. T+1, yeah. Projects within a solution have interdependencies, and it is important to make sure that they are good ones. Yes, as S&B is mentioning, the direction of your project dependencies is important as well. And so within our project, nicely alphabetized, the most abstract, so the fewest dependencies are actually here in our core projects. That's why we call it the core project. This is the one that every other project is depending on, which means we keep any dependencies that we're worried about having out of this class, or out of this project. If it's in this project, this class library up here, that means we have said this is a dependency we're willing to take. So this project here, the Infrastructure Entity Framework project, depends only on core. The Google API project depends only on core. Twitch depends only on core. Web depends only on core. The unit tests depend on probably just core. Project dependencies, core and Twitch apparently. So we did a little bit of testing on the Twitch one. We apparently had something in there that we were able to test without without explicitly hitting something Twitch related. One thing you do that I don't is including the interfaces in the same projects as the classes. I keep interfaces in a separate project, that way users don't have to bring in your classes. So Will Bennett is talking about extracting one further layer out of core. And you can do that, but you still want to make sure your model objects are in there usually, because those are going to be part of your interface a lot of times, as they're going to be the return values and parameters of your methods. But the implementations you could keep in a separate library if you wanted. So that is totally valid. Make classes internal. That seems like a dangerous idea there, Wheatlaw. I guess you could wire it up through your Ioc Container registration in there and it would work fine, now that I think about it. So maybe Wheatlaw's right about that one. Maybe it's not as excessive as I was thinking. It's funny to watch your facial expressions when you mute the stream. I'm not muting the stream. Or when you're muting the stream? So when developers tells that seems more complicated than just using new, what do you tell them the measurable benefits are? Well, Fuel Snable, so what's the downside of taking a dependency? So new is a dependency. So is system clock. So are other things. One of the first ones that you can point out to people is the idea of unit testing. So if you've gotten someone to understand the value of unit testing, you're a long way towards convincing them that they should switch around those dependencies and not new things up or rely on statics. The example I will show first is our fake clock that we have here. So the fake clock is essentially just implementing an iClock interface. The iClock interface right here is very simple. And we have a wrapper around it. We have a wrapper around datetime that's called system clock. It implements that interface. So this lets us access datetime.utc now and datetime.now without relying on them directly. So the idea here is that I can then, in my tests, rely instead on fake clock. Let's take a look at where these were used. So we needed to, is time to run, should automated messages, sure. That's not the right one. Okay, so we have some code that we need in order to write our tests. So we want to test some code that sends out a message after a certain amount of time. So that means you have to create the message, wait for a minute to pass, and then see if it wants to send. So that's what some of our code here does. So you might have code like this in your system where there's supposed to be, it waits for a minute and then it does a thing, right? Or, you know, maybe it's going to do the same thing once every minute. If you have code like this, that's really hard to test the behavior of. So when we're unit testing it, what we can actually do if we're using this fake clock instead of a real one is we can go in here and we can say, we can set the time that the clock thinks it is, and we can tell it, hey clock, the time is now, 1 minute and 1 second after what you thought it was, right? So we've essentially just moved the clock forward a minute. Now, if we didn't have this fake clock that we could just, wind the clock hands around wherever we wanted, we would actually have to wait a minute to confirm that this test worked. So we would end up with like a thread.sleep in here as we waited for the code to run, which would be really, really awful. There are some other ways to get around this other than using a fake clock. You can also use some code that can actually let you remove a dependency on a static method, but that is fairly complicated and doesn't work all the time in all the places, but you can do it. I usually recommend going this route instead of having the dependency on the static, but for something like datetime.now, it's simple enough that you usually can get away with those. So if you want to go that route, you can. It's called a shim, and I'll type that into chat in case people couldn't understand what I was saying. A shim is what lets you essentially get in the way of a static method. It's complicated to explain how that works, so I'm not going to just now, but you really are mucking with your code to do that, but it's just in the tests, so it works pretty well. And by mucking with the code, I mean legit, a lot of times it really is messing with the code that you're compiling, not your code. It's messing with what you're compiling into. Let's see. Shift F12, UTC with... Wait, what? I don't know what you wanted me to do. Sorry. One sec. Okay. Let's see. You don't need a new class or interface, just use function of datetime. Yeah, Weedlaw, you could do that. If it's a single function you can run, which is most cases. If you don't want to write more functional code, then yes. Yes, Wheatlaw. Object-oriented programming and functional programming do go very well together, and that is actually one of the reasons why C# keeps getting so many bits of functional programming added into it. So that's actually one of the reasons why I like C# so much, is the fact that they keep saying, hey, functional programming has this cool thing, why don't we start looking at doing the same concept? So it's quite nice. Okay, a couple of other things before we jump into other stuff. If anyone's in here and is new and has not joined our Discord yet, you should. All the code we do here on the stream is out on GitHub, so you can check it out there. Just wanted to mention those. Okay, so this is the concept here. Another thing might be this. A lot of systems that you're going to run into where this fake clock could be useful, there are systems where we handle things differently on the weekend. So, for example, let's say that we're doing an e-commerce site, and any orders received on Saturday or Sunday, we don't want to send out the notification emails right away. We want to toss those into a queue that'll go out on Monday morning, because we don't run our warehouses over the weekends. And welcome. Thanks for the follows, everybody. And so what we do is we would then be checking the time. We would be like, okay, we do datetime.now, and we would look at the time and we would say, hey, is it the weekend? If yes, call this method. If no, call this method, and we can send out notifications, add it to the database. Now, a lot of times, we're going to build a structure where that's going to go through a messaging system. So it's going to be the messaging system that's the one that's checking what it should do with these messages it receives. But that is up to your how your system is structured. Additionally, then when we go to test this, because we want unit tests on code like that, we're going to say, okay, let's create these messages, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, now my unit test only works on Saturday because we depended on date time now. So that's why this is one of the hidden dependencies that we have. You don't usually think about this one, but it's important. Drawmaster1212. Sorry about that. Yes, a fact is actually, so if you've used any testing framework before, this is an attribute. This is called a method attribute. You can tell because it is right above a method. And the fact method attribute, what it does for us is it tells XUnit, and XUnit is our unit testing framework. It tells it that this is a test to run. Fact is just the way that it says that. Some other frameworks you may have used, like NUnit, for example, would have written the word test. And if you were using MS Test, then you would have seen test method. And these are all basically the same concept. But a fact is just the one that XUnit uses. So for anyone that's wondering why we're using XUnit on the project, the reason actually is that when the ASP.NET development team was working on .NET Core, all of the testing they did was in XUnit. So they actually even included one of the templates as an XUnit one, and I like XUnit quite a bit, so we kept using it here. Welcome to the club, Sean Wright. Thank you for the Twitch Prime subscription. Please make sure to spam some of those hype emotes in there. I do have a YouTube. It is right there on that link. So anybody's got some hype emotes, go ahead and spam those in chat. And thank you, Draco, for linking to that. And S&B on top of things with our hype. So there we go. We got a new Chatosaurus joined the crew there. And then the follow-up follow. So awesome. So talking about the test framework, you should talk to Kurt and property-based testing. Fuel Stable, add him as a potential guest. Take a look at our stream info section on our GitHub. Okay. So, yep, fact is just that. And in XUnit, we also have, in addition to fact, we have theory. And with theory, we might do something like inline data. And then, pass in some parameters, for example, where we would have like a string, right? So that's the idea there. I'm going to get rid of those because we're not actually doing that, so I'm not really going to change that test. But that's the concept, is that it just has some different names for it, and it works pretty well. Oh, awesome, Fuel Stable. Maybe I already know that, and I just don't remember the names of everybody that's been mentioned. Wait, what? Oh, okay, so that is the concept behind those dependencies. What are some other good dependencies that we've extracted out? Oh, I know one. Right over here. We have the Google API. Now this class actually calls out to the Google API. So this does actual web code. We use an HTTP client to connect out to the Google API servers, and we use this for our schedule call. That is no problem. If anybody ever has questions, just feel free to ask. Like, we are a group discussion anyway, so it gives us good topic points. And we'll be writing some code soon too. I just wanted to cover the basics of Dependency Inversion Principle before we start writing this code. So this is how our solid Saturdays work on the stream. We discuss some concept, and then even when we start writing code live, what we do is we try to think about and discuss how it relates to the principle that we were talking about that day. So I don't know where you are, but anybody in here. But for example, let's say that you lived in Texas. schedule Texas would tell you what our schedule is for people that live in Texas. If you live in, say, Italy, Berlin, Germany, there we go. So we'll do Berlin. I think it'll get it based on that. Yep, there we go. So Central European summertime is what they're in right now. So that is our schedule for anybody that is in Central Daylight Time in the U.S. or for Central European summertime in Europe. And obviously you can do that same thing with a country or a city or anything like that, and it will go and call out to Google. But actually I'm lying. It might call out to Google. And the reason why I say might is because we followed the Dependency Inversion Principle and the Open-Close Principle. So, when we followed these principles, we did something interesting. So as I said, this class calls out to Google. 1 second, let me take a look at the schedule find me. Nice, Will Bennett. I don't think that's going to work. Sean Wright asks, how do you feel about delaying the use of interfaces until you have more than one implementation of a class? Sean Wright, that's actually what I do. I do not have an interface on all of my classes. Now, the difference is that, and yes, you're right, a lot of mocking frameworks can mock out the concrete object and not just the interface. So my stance is this: if I'm using a mocking framework that can mock out a concrete class, then I will delay using the interface. If the mocking framework I'm using does not do that very effectively, then I create it as soon as I go to write a test that needs it. Some classes I'm willing to continue with at dependencies. So for example, AutoMapper. I don't usually mock out, and I don't usually wrap and mock out AutoMapper. And the reason for that is that it's just working with in-memory objects, and I might have some tests that make sure that it really does my mappings right, but it's just assumed that that piece is working, and if something's broken with it, then that's going to be broken. That's a dependency I'm usually willing to accept, because it doesn't really slow my code down, and it's a nice one to have, actually. So yeah, there's a lot of mocking frameworks. So Sean mentioned NSubstitute, which is a good one. I've used JustMock before. I've used TypeMock. I've used MOQ. I've used RhinoMocks. There are a lot of great mocking frameworks out there that can remove that dependency effectively by giving you a mock object instead. So let's see. We also delay interfaces at work until we have multiple implementations to avoid clutter. Yeah, exactly. So you can delay it until you actually need it. Now, one of the big things here, and let me bring this up because we are talking about this this one right here. So, Sean, we're looking at this, but we do actually have multiple implementations of the time zone lookup here. So this looks up what time zone you're in so that we can get you the right answer. But let's look at what else implements this. There's something called a cached time zone lookup. Interesting. So at runtime, when we're using our code, you don't get a Google API time zone lookup. Our code is actually using a cached time zone lookup. Now that's important because of this. When we call this, the cached time zone lookup does one thing. It has two dependencies. Remember we talked about constructor injection when we were talking about dependencies? The first dependency here, and I'm going to catch up on chat, I see a lot of stuff going on over there. The first dependency here is an internal lookup. So this is the clever part right here. We actually said, hey, the cache lookup doesn't really do a lookup. It's lying. Like, what it does, it depends on someone else to do that work for it. So it needs a real one. So notice this is the same interface. So it requires something that uses the same interface it does to be passed in. And this is called the Decorator Pattern. With the idea being that we've decorated on caching to our time zone lookup. Yeah, the liar pattern. Yeah, basically. And the cache layer right here is the other dependency that we have. So the way our code works is it first tries to find, it checks our cache layer to see if we have a cached version of the lookup, and if it doesn't have it, it calls the internal one. So that's basically all our code does. It says, hey, do you have this in the cache already? If not, then I'm going to call the other one. And so what's neat about this is we have actually followed... Nice, Copious. No, I probably am not going to add that on. But you're right, I am missing that. So the cool part is, we talked about it 4 weeks ago, but the single responsibility principle, the time zone lookup that we have here, this Google API time zone lookup, that one, it knows how to talk to the Google API. That is its single responsibility. It knows how to get information from the Google API. The cached time zone lookup knows how to get things from the cache layer and from an time zone lookup. That's all it knows how to do. It doesn't know how to store things in the cache. It does not know how to get things from an API. It knows neither of those. All it knows how to do is how to check cache layer and an underlying internal object to get the data. The cache layer itself is the one that knows how to access the cache. So this class knows where that cache is, how it's stored, and how to maintain it. And that is following the single responsibility principle as part of Solid. And we do it this way, we pass this in because our code, if I decide I need to turn off the caching layer, I can just go to the place where this was wired up, right here, and I can remove this interface, and I can remove the one that tells it to use the cached version as well. So I can essentially just go to the point where we wired up our dependencies and say, don't use the caching layer, and it will call direct every time, and I can turn that off. And I can do that just, with a minor little switch, and I don't have to go through my whole code and change things. Okay, let me take a look at this giant pile of chat stuff that broke out, and probably what's an enormous fight. I always write interfaces first until the design is complete, then I write the classes. Wheatlaw, you can absolutely get away with that. So if you want to just start with mocks and things like that, that works perfectly. Great of you, can you do that? I tend to find the design emerges from the code in a reasonable, natural manner. If you want to look yeah, so if you start off with your tests on that, you can go the way that that Wheatlaw was talking about. Mock your mock, SpecFlow. Yeah, SpecFlow is great. We're not using it on this project, but I absolutely love SpecFlow. It is a fantastic tool. Every level is to start as tight as possible to expand as needed. So make everything private until you need it public. Yes, Will Bennett, that's a very good suggestion. Sometimes it has to be public. Can you mock classes with mock? There is a principle for that as well. Abstract classes, yes. Abstract classes are great. Locator pattern. Hey, how do you post a link? Will Bennett, you become a regular or a mod or something like that. Subscribers might be able to. I don't remember if subscribers can post links in our chat. Your cache time zone lookup is a decorator. Yes, it is. Absolutely, Sean. How does time zone look? Oh, you want to see the interface? I think it's more complicated than I like. It's right there. There's the interface. Oh, hey, cool. Fight broke out. Wait. I'm in a duel? What? Who am I in a duel with? I didn't know I was in a duel. I usually do TDD and Twitch Love. You do TDD and you do the core domain logic first and then make interfaces for all the infrastructure stuff you need later, and you implement the interfaces. Yeah, so Twitch Love, that's a lot of times what I will do as well. I won't actually write the real one, or what I'll do is I'll start off with a class that is a fake one and doesn't really talk to the database. Like, one of the things I'll do is I'll make, like, fake repository that just returns back a new object that it newed up, and that's like my fake starting point, because I'm like, I don't have a database yet, I don't have a data layer, I didn't include entity framework, I didn't do any of that, and so that's what I'll write sometimes. I'll just be like, nope, done. Okay, Zelvixodian, welcome, haven't seen you in a while, welcome back. HTTP client or HTTP client factory? You should use client factory, Zelvixodian. You could split it up into a time zone provider and an HTTP decorator. Wheatlaw, yes, we could probably break these things out a little bit better. And Drawmaster, welcome. Glad you followed there. You must be enjoying the stream so far. That is how I will interpret that. Okay. Sorry, I was thirsty today. I might actually have to go for another drink. We might take a drink break in a minute. Okay. So we talked about how those work. Will Bennett, I actually have not gotten the chance to use the Managed Extensibility Framework in a project yet. The Wally, hey, how's it going? Okay. So we have that dependency, we've got those. Trying to think if there's anything else we should definitely cover in terms of dependency inversion before we start just writing code. While we're thinking about that, I'm going to yank this over here. I merged in a couple of things. You guys sounded like you were saying in chat that the dueling wasn't working. So we'll try this. Who was in a duel? Duel, Wheatlaw, duel, Will Bennett. Okay. Wait, it doesn't work for you? It didn't work for you guys? Hang on. Let me try a duel in chat. So watch the chat window over there. So I'm dueling. I'm going to see if I can get Twitchloft to duel me. That's right, Twitchloft. You've been challenged to a duel if you're there. And I'm going to get onto a different page so you guys don't have to see, like, the inception of, like, you know, videos going back. No, he's not going to accept it. Come on, Twitchloft. Let's go. You going down? Oh, and if anyone in here wants to see our previous episodes of Solid, they are here in the videos section. You can actually find, that should be single responsibility, open closed, Liskov substitution, and I apparently didn't add interface segregation to that collection, so I will do that. Twitchloft won't fight me. Rah. Alright, so it didn't happen. We'll try dueling Will. Will's there. So, basically what's going to happen, when he accepts that, the bot has now asked me, it says, choose your weapon by replying to this with rock, paper, or scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off the screen so that Will can't cheat. Hey! There we go! In the epic duel, DevChatter's paper won, Will Bennett's rock lost. So there you go, that's how you win at rock, paper, scissors. No, Will Bennett. You put the exclamation point before the rigged there. It's exclamation point rigged. And for I swear it's not rigged. So we actually have a rigged command. Actually, I want to talk about this because it's really cool. The rigged command is neat because it is not really a command. It's actually that. The rigged command is an alias. So essentially all we did is we said our aliases can now have parameters in them as well. So when you type rigged into the chat, it actually sends into our system, it calls the quote command instead and passes the parameter 3 so that we can call quotes by name, essentially. It's a very neat trick. Additionally, we have other things like our hype emote that we spam in the chat and on our overlay like this, and that is actually calling this, which this is going to go really fast all of a sudden. Because we have a mild bug in our thing, but we're not going to worry about that. It's actually calling blast hype, and hype is one of the things that we can blast onto the screen. The other one being blast derp, which spams the screen with our little derp emote. So it's our derpy derp emote with Chattosauruses. We love our Chattosauruses here. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at some code today. So, what were we working on before? And we will discuss dependency inversion as we do it. Fixing the schedule command. What is sitting around on our... We have a few branches that we've left open that I'd like to get some work on. See if we can't wrap up and get included in here. Namespace cache bug fix, we could do that. Storing dueling data. The dungeon we could work on. Domain events. No, we're not going to do that one. Bye. One thing I will mention to all of you, one of the things that a lot of developers do need to do from time to time, be willing to throw out code. If you complete something and you say, wow, this is garbage, your answer is either refactor it into something better or just pitch it and write it new. Because that code, the only reason I pitched it is because it's far enough behind at this point that it's going to be more work to fix that than it is to just write it again. Okay. Store the dueling data. Which one do we want to work on? Restructuring that data, or do we want to just do something else? Request feature, times on DB settings, move command settings into command settings entity objects. We could do that. Fixing NSC, oh, the namespace. So Copious on that one, I think we're basically done, but I want to do a bit of restructuring on it. Now, the reason I'm choosing this one is this is sort of a dependency abstraction we're going to do. So this, I think, lines up better with what our episode's about. So this is dependency inversion right here. And I'll explain. So we have a bunch of values hard-coded into a lot of our commands. The coins command, for example, has some things like messages. We have message text. We have other things like currency updates over here. This is very related. It has... Where's the number 1? Where's the number 1? 1. That's the only one? What? Oh, it's in the currency generator. My bad. It's in here. Oh! Currency settings. Coins printable. Hey, cool! We extracted this one. Well, we won't do that one. But there are other ones, of course. Let's take a look. So, we added voting, dueling... Ooh, this is interesting. I just thought of something cool that we could do with this. So we have, I mentioned that we have hype and derp, and they look like this. Hype and derp. And all they do is we create sprites and have them fly around on the screen like that. And they kind of cover me up a little bit, but that's fine. So these hype and derp. What I think I want to do instead is make these come out of the database, what your options are. Because as I told you, that's actually blast hype and blast derp. Essentially, we could make it so that blast comes out of... So this pulls its data from the database, determines what's the command that it uses. So hype just knows where the hype image is, and derp knows where the derp image is. Define your configuration in your define that configuration in your composition root and share through config poco types. With Ioc containers like simple injection, you can get startup time validation with your shared config. That is a very good suggestion, Sean, right? What I was actually going to do was just make it so that these blast values that we use come out of the database. Do I know the word? Yep, I knew the word. There's your hint, everybody. So, here's my plan. I am going to zip to my fridge, grab myself a drink, and then we are going to extract these out so that we can put anything we want displaying out on that screen. So we're not limited to just blast hype and blast derp. We'll be able to do whatever one we want. Digicrest, you don't feel like university taught you how to code at all. You're looking at all this like, what? No, so Digicrest, that's actually a really common thing. That's actually why I recommend you hang out and look at what we're doing. Try writing some of this stuff yourself, and just generally write more code. One of the big things I would recommend digging into digging into some open source projects and actually trying to work on and contribute to them. Take a look at some programming exercises and things like that, and that'll help you out a lot. No, Wheatlaw, we are not done with dependency inversion. In fact, we are going to show a type of dependency that we have taken here in this class, and we're going to extract it and make it so that we can inject what the different types of emotes are that we display on the screen. So, I'm going to go get a drink because I have a dependency on caffeine, and we will go ahead and make sure that I inject that caffeine dependency directly into my bloodstream. So, be right back. And I am back. Welcome, everyone. See, it's funny, S&B. I do have a hard dependency on Pepsi, as I drink the last of this can of Pepsi. One second, everybody.
And is it true that you lost your Pepsi endorsement?
I hadn't heard that.
And hang on while I put one of these into my... Yeah, see? I lost my Pepsi sponsorship onto a Coke Zero. Okay, better use an Ioc container. Yeah, no, I have an Ioc container. That's what the cozy is for. Okay, if your Pepsi bottle has a hole in it, would that be a leaky abstraction? Actually, if you look at the cozy here, if this is the interface I'm drinking out of, that's a leaky abstraction right there. There's a hole down there. How do you know it's you and not a body snatcher? You don't. I'm drinking Coke Zero. You can't tell. S&B. We should contact Streamlabs and yell at them and be like, S&B wants his mug. So, hang on, guys. See, check it out. I put a can in a mug. I'm weird. Okay. So, here's what we're going to do. We want to extract a dependency out of this code. Dependency, you say? What dependency do we have to abstract? Well, the dependency we're going to extract here is this. We have hard-coded in hype and derp as dependencies. No, we're not going to get a blast strategy. Actually, maybe we are. Crap. Okay, Copious, it's probably not going to have that name, but you're not wrong. It is a blast strategy. Basically. Okay, so... Let's see. I gave it the repository, so I guess we'll just do it this way. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's get ourselves a test on this. So this is going to be blast command. This is part of core commands. So we're going to test this and change the dependency as we do it. So core commands, insert folder, blast command tests. Sorry, I'm having to look right behind my webcam right here. That's why I'm like doing this weird thing with my head. And then we're going to say class. This is going to be... Yeah, I don't really like it, but we'll go with it. Class handle command should. Now remember I said that fact is what we call our, that's our test attribute for our methods for XUnit. And I'm going to say public void do thing given thing. Now why do I start with this structure? The reason I start with this structure is because this is the structure. You could make a template out of this, you could do a snippet, whatever you want. That's a good structure because it gets you the thought on what you want to do. And I have not yet had to think about what my test is going to be, and I can kind of let it form naturally. And so what I'm going to do is, wait, hang on, what's going on? Behavior injections, I know my people hype, so not because some hype command was on the overlay, where he's being weird. Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. We want to create a new one of these. So we want a new blast command. New blast command, there we go. We need a mock repository, so a new mock of iRepository. Just the object for now. And a mock of the iAnimation display notification dot object. Oh, I just said the word mock. I didn't say new. Derp. Object. And there we go. And that will get us our blast command. And now I can say blast command dot what? Oh, derp. Did we... Right, we call process on it, not handle command. I forgot about that. Hang on. Okay. What do you mean? No, Twitch Loft's in another duel. What other duel? Duel Janiscu. Oh. Yeah, okay, something went weird there. Alright, we'll look at that later, Janiscu. Oh. That's awesome, Will Bennett. Okay, so. Handle command should. Process. New mock. T-I-chat client. Dot object. I don't think we need anything actually in it. And then a command received event args, which again, we don't need to worry about yet. So that's the call we make. Now what do we actually want to check? So here's what we have to figure out. What do we actually want our test to do? So right now, we did our basic setup. We created the object. So this is the actor that's going to do something. We took the action on it. Now we want to verify that something happens. Notice I don't even have a name of my method yet. But that's okay, because I want to figure out what this method's going to do. And then we can name it. So we called that, and let's take a look. let's say send help text is what we're going to have it do. Should send help text given no argument. So it didn't receive any arguments, so we're going to display the help text. So that's a good first test. Now, why did I do a test like this? Well, because this is an easy one. I can verify that this is right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to save this mock. This is our chat client, not mock. This is chat client. Put that up at the top. Now we can say chat client verify. And this is our way of saying we want to verify that something happened to this. So when you're dealing with a mock object, this is like a generated at runtime object in memory that you can require of things or change its behavior here in the test. So we're going to say that we want to verify that blast x dot send message was called, and the message we wanted it to send was blast command dot help text. So we can verify that. So that's what we want to have happen. And when I run this test, I'm just going to go ahead and click that to run it. We'll find out first off if I wrote this test right. It has a name, it's got an arrange, it's got an act, it's got an assert, it has every bit that we need in order for this to work. So there we go. The test is green, as we expect. And because we like TDD here, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to comment that out. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to see this fail. So because the code was already there, I want to see red. There we go. So if we didn't have that, it fails. So this is our default case. We want it to pass now. So I uncommented the code. It's really here now. Now we want this to succeed. Boom, it does. Fantastic. So now we write our next test. And in this one, this is where we're going to have to start changing things. Because first off, we got duplication we need to remove because I just copy-pasted something. So that's pretty indicative that we're probably going to have some duplication. Hang on. Oh, Will Bennett. Yeah, Will Bennett, I would love to see that code at some point. Yes, the test runner I'm using is ReSharper. It's a very nice test runner that they have here. This has actually been one of the reasons that I've run ReSharper as long as I have, is their test runner has always been really, really nice. Okay, so let's say send hype message given hype argument. So it's going to receive the hype argument, and we want it to send out the hype text. So here's where I'm going to change how this works. Now, I want to point out to you guys, what I am doing right now is big emphasis on that not there. This is not refactoring. I am restructuring the way this code works. There really are behavioral changes, so be careful about how you use the word refactoring. If I were refactoring this code, I would be leaving the functionality the same, but I am changing it. And so what I'm doing is not refactoring. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I am going to take this repository object that we depend on here, and I am going to say have I used ncrunch? Yes, I have, Will Bennett. Ncruck. Okay, so anyway, here's what we need to do. This obviously we want to get these mocks and we want to get back this blast client. So I want to extract out a method that gets me these. Get test command and mocks. There we go. So get test command and mocks. This has an out of the blast command and extracts back a mock. That was not what I wanted at all. Good try though. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to say mock chat client, mock repository, chat client, derp, chat client, repository, and blast command. That's what we return. We do not need that. And so now, when we return, we can return back chat client, repository, and blast command. There we go. And that is a var blast command. Boom. There we go. Okay. So, what I'm using here is called a tuple in C#. So tuple now has native tuples built in. These are called value tuples. They are actually value objects, not... so they are... they're going to return back this type. We can construct and deconstruct them nicely, and I will show you how the deconstruction works here in a second by borrowing this. Can I get away with this? Can I just var and then chat client repository blast command? Yes, I can. There we go. So I cheated there a little bit. Sorry about that. Tuples and tuple deconstruction is awesome. Yes, and actually the tuples construction and deconstruction that was put into C# is actually good. They actually did a nice implementation, which I'm happy about. Previous tuples that we've had in C#, so before version 7 of C# added these nice new tuples. If anyone ever put a tuple into my project, I was practically going to smack them and be like, just make a class if you're already having to use that object. It's so ugly. Creeper, yeah, so Java has, it will probably come some point. So that is actually the biggest problem. You're highlighting the biggest problem I have with Java. So Java's not bad. The thing that has always killed me in it is it's always behind in actually implementing features. Has been for about a decade now. And so that's the thing that kills me about it. Is I would love to say, yeah, Java's also, great, but they keep lagging behind on these things. So I always feel bad when Java was like, dang it, I wish I had that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I wish you had it too. I want all of our languages to be improving all the time and getting better. Yes, and as Sean points out, you can do a lot of cool deconstruction now because they actually gave us to that as a language feature. So it's very, very cool. Okay, so here's why we did this. So first off, I can come up here and I can do that. So this blast command gets created the same. So our code's a little simpler in our setup. This is basically set up the objects that we need, because everything's going to need these. All of our tests related to this just need those three things. So we'll just return them back. And that is our chat client, our repository, and our blast command. In this new one, we're actually going to use the repository. Other cool thing, no one has yelled at me in chat yet. There is a thing. Notice I'm not using this repository up here, am I? I am just going to replace it with an underscore. So replacing it with an underscore like that means that that is now so this is called a discard. And that's basically saying to the language, I don't actually need that, so just kind of throw it away. So the middle object here is our repository. I don't need it, so I've basically said ignore this thing. Okay, so I need to set it up so that during the process method, the repository returns back the objects that I want. Now the way that we do that is I have to tell it before it calls this that the repository is going to return specific values. So I just need to say repository setup, and I want to say what method is going to get called. And the method that's going to be called is list, and it is going to take a specification that it is any... Not going to worry about which specification it is, but it is going to be a of a type that I don't know yet, because we haven't made it. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to comment that out for now. We need to go make a type before we can proceed. Let me check on chat here. Let's see. Reasons matter. Deconstructions object arrays is my favorite feature of ES 2015. C# has the span of t. Yes, it does. Span of t is quite amazing, actually. Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to intercept our call to our database and return back the correct object. Razarek? Welcome. Hi. Sure, what's your joke? I wonder if I'm going to regret saying sure. So, I need to create a new specification. So, data specifications, because I need a new model object first. This is going to be a blast, what did we call them? This is a blast strategy, a blast, blast type entity? Sure. Alright, so we have this string, let's call that word, image path. We'll do word and image path for now, is going to be the concept. We won't necessarily have this in the database yet. Alright. Have fun, S&B. Hopefully it's good. Let's see. Into this we need to create a new specification. So let's make a specification on this. Actually, before we do that, I can write my test. So let's say it's a specification of that type. So when we get one of those, we want to tell it to return a value that's going to be a new list of those types. Not Zane, are you sane? No, C++ is good. It's not a bad language. We like it here. Oh, I almost forgot. We need one more thing on this. So in Word, we need to also have message. There we go. So Oh, and I said hype. So send message given valid argument. So that's what we're going to test. So we want to make sure that we got a valid argument. So word is going to be whatever. Message is going to be whatever. We'll figure those out in a minute. This is the object that we're extracting. So this is the blast type. I'm going to put this at the top because we're going to define its properties. The word is going to be foo, and the message is going to be bar. So in here, arguments, new list string. Actually, is this what the? It starts out with a list. Good. Well, actually, arguments, new, list of string. First argument is going to be word. So blast type word. Okay, looks like C++ conversations took over the chat while I wasn't paying attention. Will Bennett, you do C++ for GPU computing. Yep, I have done C++ for GPU computing as well. There are a lot of good languages out there. There's no, yeah, like... There are a lot of good languages. There's no need for a war. Appreciate it, Not Zane. Appreciate it. Thank you for livening up chat a little bit. Oh, man. Alright, so we're going to process this. We're going to pass in our arguments, which, now that I think about it, we could just extract this all the way to the top, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay, so we want to make sure that we did that. And the text we're going to pass here at the bottom, we are not going to pass out the help text this time. We were supposed to send out the message. So this test is going to fail. Wait, hang on, guys. Wait, I have the ultimate solution to the problem. Clearly, we need to do this. There you go. There's now been a vote started, and you can vote for either C#, C, C++, or Objective-C. Sorry, Fuel Snable. It doesn't have C in the name. We only picked languages with C in the name. Yeah, see, I thought about including Java, to be honest, because it's close enough on those. And Partytron just is going with Objective-C there. Yeah, exactly, Not Zane. Hey, you know what? Just to be clear here, this may have been rigged, but I swear it's not rigged. Oh yeah, Scala's got a C in the name. That's legit. Alright, so anyway, let's run these tests. This test is going to fail because it's going to be red, which we do expect. Scython, yes, clearly. Thanks, Crichton. Hey, C#1! Surprise! Alright, okay, so this test passes. This test fails, and it's for the exact reason that we expect. This was looking for bar to be sent as a message, and it never happened. Interestingly, It does not complain about the fact that this was never called. So keep in mind, a setup doesn't have to get called, but a verify does. At least without specifying anything further than that. So once we do this, we want to make this test pass. So here's where we actually get to start extracting this dependency. So the dependency we actually had in here is this. We have hard-coded directly to the concept of having a hype and a derp as our actions. So keep in mind that works great for our channel here, where we have hype and derp emotes, but not everybody has that. Visual Basic definitely has a C in it. So does Clips. Any Clips fans in here? Yeah, buddy. Okay, so here's what I want to do. We need to extract this, pull these out in a library, pass those in, and then call those methods. So we need a list of, what are these? Blast type entities. And that is going to equal underscore repository dot list. Can I forget if I let myself do this. Data base policy. What is it? Policy base data policy. Is it not that? Data item policy. There it is. Okay, so that works. So for now, I could say data item policy of that type dot all. Or actually, I could have passed in none. I'll list this and not pass one in. That'll be fine. Derp. Blast types. Okay, there we go. What is going on? Actually, have you ever tried the Unity game engine? Draco, I am planning on trying the Unity game engine on stream here next year, so that is actually part of the plan for this channel. We will do some fun with that. So, should be quite fun. I don't know Unity that well. I've thought about trying to get some people on the stream that know Unity actually pretty well. Maybe I can convince one of our viewers here. I do know someone that is on our stream here that does some indie game development using Unity and could be a fun person to have come on the stream and help teach us that. Not Zane, yes, we have used JetBrains Rider here on the stream. Actually, there was a day where Visual Studio released an update and it broke our solution, and they released another update shortly after and fixed our solution, but while our solution was broken, in Visual Studio, we just ran JetBrains Rider instead. So it worked out fine. And I know there are a lot of people that like it better than Visual Studio. There are a lot of great editors and IDEs for your code, so I would recommend anybody use the ones that you enjoy. Wait, lol, I'm removing these dependencies. And Creeper, yeah, these videos are uploaded on Twitch and they also get sent to YouTube. So you can find them here in the video section on Twitch, which is where you find the most recent ones. But at a delay, they are also showing up on YouTube, so you can find them over there as well. Yeah, we're gonna do Unity. So fully expect that. XNA, a nice Wheatlall, yeah. And welcome to everybody. Everybody that followed today. Greatly appreciated, as always. Wheatlall, the data dependency was technically already there, but yes, you are correct. On answer comments in the... yes, Sean, right, I do have a dependency on answering comments in the chat, but I want this to be interactive. So people can ask questions. So here's what we need to do. So we want to grab... Ooh, I grabbed all. That's not what we want to do. No. Derp. We need to do this. We need a special one. We need single, and we need a... Actually, let me take that type. Hang on. Here's what we're going to do. We need a specification. We need a policy. So this is our specification section. Our policies are what create our specifications. So let's go here, and I want to create a derived type of this. And this is going to be a blast type entity policy. Policy, that's how we spell that word. Public class blast type policy. It is a data item policy of that. Implement the missing members, and then we are going to move this to its own file. Just make blast type provider providing the blast type based on name. We could just make a provider that was wrapping around a database, but I like this approach better because then we don't have to create providers for all the different types of objects. This is essentially gets us the same thing. We just use our repository object instead of this. So we're very limited in how we actually access it. Didn't hear, did you say that you will use, Draco, yes, I am planning on trying out Unity. As I mentioned, I'm not an expert on Unity, so we can all learn it together, which has a lot of value in itself as well. So we have a protected one of these, and I need to make a public static, welcome, thank you for that follow. Policy, public static one of these, and we're gonna say by word, string word. Whoops, helps if you type your curly the right way, Brendan. Return new blast type policy, and it is going to be an expression that takes in one of those, and we're gonna say x.word equals word. There we go. By name, word has no explicit meaning. Yeah, we could go with. We could go by word or by name. Anybody that's using this policy is just going to say blast policy by word, and they're expecting to get back an object that has word in it. So I think I'm good with this one. Because it is checking the word property. So we didn't call it name, which actually you make a very good point. Let's rename that to name, and then we're all in agreement on it. So let's do that. So instead of word, it'll be name. Derp, nope. Name. Don't you hate it when your refactoring tools don't figure out what you're trying to change? Yeah, name is a good one for it. I'm good with that. Actually, let me kill the bot. Sorry guys, killing the bot for a second. You'll notice it's fighting. See, it's saying, hello world, the bot has arrived. That's because as I try to compile, the bot is like, oh, you're changing my libraries. Let me try to restart. And so, because it's a web project we're actually running here in this Visual Studio, it is fighting that and trying to do those changes itself. So we're going to do name, foo, bar, there we go. So back here, we want a derp. This is a blast type entity policy dot, oh, I need to change it to by name now. This goes right after the word thing to blast. I'm gonna call it blast name. It's like my blast name is Enric. Yeah, you got that? Yeah, So blast type entity policy, by word, blast name, single, one of those, that. Blast types. Okay, cool. Let's change that from by word to by name. By name. And then let's jump over here, and we're going to change this from word to name. Boom. What's the colored file tabs? Oh, that is called our document well. It is an extension that is in Visual Studio, and it's actually part of Microsoft's Productivity Power Tools, which is an extension that's actually just a collection of other extensions, which includes that one. It's pretty nice. Oh, yes, Phalor. So welcome. Glad you're learning C#. You would actually be happy to know then that I am doing a series called Learn to Code in C#. We're probably going at what's a little bit beginner level because you're already an experienced developer and it's more designed for like a beginner developer. But you're welcome to join those. We've had streams where we have explained all the various different types of looping and other mechanisms in C#. But I would also really welcome you to join these because you'll learn a lot about the styles and things like that that people use in C# development. Welcome, glad you're here. And hopefully the transition goes well for you. Switching from Java to C# more than, or the other way around, because I've done Java development as well. I did some about a year ago. And the thing that confuses you is like when things are almost the same but not quite, and you're like, oh man, this feels the same, but it's not quite the same. Did someone spam hype or derp into the chat? No, the bot's not running. Okay, so let me get the bot running again, and then you guys can spam hype and derp and things like that. Alright, so the bot's back in the chat so we can do all of our crazy. Ooh, busted! I know what happened. We almost certainly got a database error right there. Because our other commands work, right? Yep, our other commands work. But the hype and derp might be causing problems. Oh, no. Apparently they're working-ish. One sec. And I'm back. Alright. So, let's see. Where's type entity policy? So that's get by name. So the problem that we ran into is that doesn't actually know what we're doing. So let's say Benric blast move blast dependency. Let's say extract extract blast type extract blast type dependency. There we go. Okay, so this is absolutely a work in progress right here. I don't need these two just yet. First thing I want to commit is our entity and our policy, because these can go in without anything else. So adding model, object, and policy. So our policy classes get us specifications, and specifications are basically a filter, or they're information designed for how to get those objects, what you need to do when getting them, and that is getting them from memory, from database, from a cache, from anything. So it's a collection. It's really about filtering concept. So these specifications are a domain-driven design concept that we're using here in our project. And it's very good for this type of code. Let's see. 51 hours. What do you mean 51 hours? What? You've been live for just over 51 hours? What? Stay hydrated, bot's a little bit confused there. I don't think I've been live for 51 hours. That's news to me. This stream's been going longer than I thought. Let me just check that. 2 hours. Nice, Wheatlaw. That was a good joke. I like it. Okay, so we created that. Now, why is this not working? Well, that's because over here we did not actually add it to our database yet. So our database does not know what that type is. And since that blast type entity right there, we'll call it blast types. So there's what it's going to be in our table. And then we need to do something with it. We need to come down to on model creating, and we need to say blast type entity, its name is unique. So we need to make sure that all our blast type entities are unique. That way when you do blast hype or blast derp, you get a specific one. So that needs to be a unique index on there. Okay, so doing that little amount of work should allow us to create our new type. So let's do this. So we're going to create a table in the database, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to come into this text box that's behind my head. So I'm going to bring that up here so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. We're going to say add migration. And add migration is going to tell Entity Framework that we want it to auto-generate some code that maps from our object we created in our class into SQL objects. So it's going to create some scripts for us that will modify our database to add in tables for the objects we created. So add migration, and what I do is I start off by putting in the word test. Now this is an indicator to me that I should not be checking this in. So I then say project and where my Entity Framework classes are. And then I run this. EF migrations, making DBAs want to die since forever. So if you don't like Entity Framework migrations, there are a lot of other ways to update your database to match the models that you need. Database change management has been an important concept in development for a long time. So if you've got DBAs that don't like EF migrations, there are plenty of other tools that you can use in order to achieve the same result. Which is that developers have a way of changing this stuff. Looks like I've got a tooling version that I need to deal with. I'm not going to deal with that right now. Because 2.1.1 and 2.1.3 probably aren't significantly different enough for me to need to update that before I continue on. Okay, so I created this migration. It's called test, and if you look at our changed code, you'll notice we have this class. See, it's got the name test in it right there. And then we have this test class as well, and then this is the snapshot adding it in. So let's take a look at the code it created. Right back here, it opens us up to the file that it just made. So if we take a look, it created a file that has a non-nullable ID that is a GUID, and then we have a name that it said is nullable. Okay, I guess I'm not too worried about it. It's unique, so we can have an empty one. Message, image path. Create an index. Name is not null. That's funny. So it's nullable, but we're going to force it to not be null. Okay. That was dumb. I'm not going to bother fixing it. Unique, true. Because that's basically all we wanted. Was we want to make sure that it has a unique index on name, and then it's got an image path and a message that are strings. And if we want to take a look at the types that it's creating for these, we can take a look at those by opening up our, not our snapshot, our designer. This should actually tell us what it made, right? Value generated add, value generated add. Nope. Okay, has filter name, that's funny. Okay, so let's nuke these. These are the 3 files we just created. I'm going to discard those. Those looked like what we wanted, so I'm going to come down to the Package Manager console again, bring that back up. I'm going to make the same command, but this time I'm going to say add blast type table. Let me check out chat before I do that. Nope, nobody said anything important. So, okay, cool. Just the chat bot talking over there. Alright, so we rebuilt the project. We created this migration the right way this time. That looks good. Thanks, Will Bennett. That's important. So this would be... This is adding it to the database. So adding blast types to the database. Now what I'm going to do is this. We're going to update database. Could not load unit tests. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to worry about it because unit test database probably has an issue in it right now. Alright, so let's get rid of the policy. We don't really need to look at the entity just yet. Name, message, and image path. So what did we do? We said it needs to send out that message. Okay, so this test is currently failing. So let's run the test again. This is going to compile and run our test. And we get an exception that that method was not called with that exact value. So what we're saying is we want this type to actually get passed in when that's called, is the idea. So in order to make that happen, we need to say if blast types does not equal null, and actually that should be blast type singular, then we want to send out that message, and the message we're going to send is blast type dot message. So let's comment this part out, except for that. So this is our old way. That's our switch that we're getting rid of. So we're going to say else send out the help text, which means you didn't match one of our blast types. Derp. Derp, 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 derp. There we go. Let's jump back to our test and run it, and it should work this time. Yeah, so you can get out of derp, but you can't immediately follow it with a blast unless you're a mod, because blast and derp are the same command, which is actually a way to limit how frequently you can spam the screen with those commands. Okay, so we got that. So foobar, okay. What if someone needs a lot of help? Yeah, exactly. Clearly that was the problem. It wants me to do what now? Oh, that's actually not terrible. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but no, we're not going to do that, because we're going to add other code in there as well. Okay. Will Bennett, yeah, we could null object pattern, but then we would be, so we're going to need to send that down to the, other code, so that's the problem. It's going to get sent to the JavaScript, so we'll have to take a look at that. So maybe, let's get this entity in the database real fast, and then we'll take a look at that. We could get away with using the null object pattern. Whoops, I didn't mean to open that view. Please stop opening the view. I really don't need it. Thank you. Blast types. View data. There we go. Now, can I get away with this, or do I need to generate a GUID? Alright, GUID. Name. Hype. Message. I realized a problem we need to fix. Message is, yeah, Wheatlaw. We might be able to get rid of the else that way. What's our message? What was it? Hype. It's hype, hype, DevChatter hype, exclamation point. And the image path we're going to find in our JavaScript. www.root.js. Is it in the overlay or is it in animations? It's in the overlay, looks like. DevChatter hype emote. It's right there. So we're going to put this into the database. And yes, I know I'm hard coding the first one into the database. Don't worry too much about that. We're going to make a page for it, or we're going to allow the editors, one or the other. So let's get ourselves the hype and derp emotes set up. Derp. What do we say for that one? Herp derp devcha derp. Herp derp devcha derp. So I'm going to copy that. And now I need the path for that one also, and that's going to be right here. And there we go. Okay, so we now have hype and derp actually in our database. Wheatlaw hates using GUIDs as primary keys. So you're an int kind of guy, eh, Wheatlaw? There's no problem with that. I like ints for primary keys also. They're quite nice. Ints, longs, whatever. Use a unique primary key ID and a unique public GUID. So the reason why Wheatlaw is suggesting that is because ints are pretty easy to work with. Wheatlaw, if they are, as long as they're actually ordered, it doesn't matter, and you can follow a clustered index. Now the way I just used it is not ideal, but yes, you're right, because of the way a clustered index works, you want to make sure that you have sequential GUIDs when you're doing that. So there are a lot of tools that will get you sequential GUIDs. Yeah, exactly, Wheatlaw, but the trick is that GUIDs are so large that you don't actually have to worry about it. Yeah, sequential GUIDs. There you go. New sequential ID in Transact SQL. So basically lets you use a GUID without having to worry about clustered index having to restructure all the time. Yes, Fuel Snable, your uniqueness is still guaranteed. Don't underestimate how many GUIDs there are. It's 128 bits. It's huge. There are so many you don't usually have to worry about it. But Wheatlaw is correct. If you are going to have an enormous table, you probably want to yeah, Wheatlaw, mine isn't gonna have that, so I'm not worried about it. Anyway, not something I'm gonna change today, but you're not wrong. There's some benefit there. Okay, so we grab that out of the database. We say, oh, that's why. We come over here. We say single, where it is any one of those, and we want to return back a new last type entity that's actually just this one. So when we call that, it returns back that entity. That's the one we asked for. We asked for it by that value. Well, the reason I say that, Wheatlaw, is Whenever things come down to preference and things like that, or when there's not a big deal, that's why I say, like, you're not wrong, because, like, there are benefits to it. There are benefits to a lot of different things. So, there's, with all things programming, there's always a benefit and a drawback on a lot of things. So, okay. Sometimes there's more than one right answer. Setup single it is any less than any returns blast type, that, and then that, and then that's green. So, let's take a look at our next test. Was that something on this? Did someone... Yeah, Wheatlol. Okay, so, should send message, should notify display given valid arguments. So, in addition to that one, I want to have image path equals anything. We need to pull out this mock. So we're going to pull it out as display notification. So this will be the last thing that this needs to return for our setup. Display notification. Why don't I call that just display for now? So now I need to make a slight adjustment to how this was called, because now I need to have an underscore here, and I need to have an underscore here, and I need to have an underscore up here, because we're not using those properties. Alright, so I find that there is no right answer, but many equal compromises. Yes, Fuel Snable, that's a good description. Yeah, so, no, the point is, so I agree with Wheatlol. He's got some very good points. I will say that that's not the only way, and I do like the structure that he's suggesting. I think for a lot of the things we have in our code base, we could switch to using an integer ID, and I think there would be some benefits to doing so. That's not to say that I think you should always be using an integer ID, and there is the approach that he's suggesting where you have both an integer ID and a GUID, and a lot of times that's if you need to display the value outside the system, you have the secondary GUID. Those types of approaches sometimes cause confusion for developers, and so that's one of the drawbacks of it, but there are some benefits to it as well. So there are a lot of good approaches to things. The wrong answer doesn't always have much impact, so it can be ignored, but that doesn't make it a right answer. True, Wheatlol, but I will point out there, like, the reason why Fuel Snable was talking about compromises is no matter which approach we take, there's almost always some kind of compromise we have to make. So that is the best answer, I think, there. Send message, notify display given valid arguments. You know what? I'm going to do this. I am going to violate pure TDD here and be like, no, I'm going to test two things at once. So I am going to say this is notify display. We're going to say notify display.verify. And not that it called hype or derp, it's going to call something else. We're going to say blast is what it's going to call, and it's going to pass in our, what did we call it? Path? Image path. Image path. So foobar, and this will be fizz. There we go. Yeah, Will Bennett, that's a very good point. It is basically picking your poison. Get test commands and mocks to have all the mocks as optional input parameters. Oh yeah, Twitchloff, you could do it that way. I used to think there was one answer. That is my... Yeah, that's a dangerous spot to be in there, Fuel Snable. If you think your answer is always the right one, that's usually not a good thing. I am happy to know that my answer is often not the, like, the only answer. It's good to know that there are other ways of doing things. Alright, so this is going to be the chat. This is going to be the repo. This is going to be the... whoops. Not the whoops. The display. And this is going to be the command. There we go. That, so we use the repo there, call the chat there, chat and display. Display has a blast. Pizza, Fritz. Fritz should work. Just here, there we go. Let's all wear hats. Hang on. We're all wearing hats, right? Yeah, so there we go. So we're wearing hats this stream, guys. So we need to create that. Create a method called blast. It is going to be a task. Task. Taking a string, and it's going to be image path. Down here, implement the missing member. And the annoying thing is it doesn't know it needs to make it async. And we're going to call this all clients, and instead of calling derp, we're going to call blast. We're going to pass in our image path. When we do this, we are going to create that on this task string image path. Go to the interface of this. Ooh, nothing derives from that. What? Really? Oh yeah, nothing derives from that. That's just implementing that type up there. Okay. Dependency inversion. Frankie, welcome. Yeah, it is a bit about black magic, but that's one of the reasons why. So we are focusing on the dependency inversion principle as it relates to Solid and how we structure our code and how we use it. So that's a very great point, and one of the big things about dependency inversion principle is that yes, it does seem like voodoo black magic, especially when you do things like the Decorator Pattern. It gets really, really voodoo-y, but there's a lot of cool things that you can do with it, and it's actually very, very... So dependency inversion, one of the ways you solve it, by the way, Will Bennett, is with injection of dependencies. So they are different but related concepts. And one of the things that I tend to do when trying to explain how an Ioc container works, so some of the presentations I've given at various workshops, conferences, and events and things like that are, one of my favorites is understanding Ioc containers by building one. And what we do is we take like 15-20 minutes and we just build an Ioc container from scratch so that people understand how our dependency injection is working, so that they can understand when they are inverting their dependencies and they want to use an Ioc container to inject those dependencies for themselves, how that actually works. Because Ioc containers seem like magic until you make one. Once you make one, it's actually really, really easy to understand. Wheatlaw, if you don't know, so there's a bit of voodoo magic, so if you don't know how Ioc containers work, when you see a decorator pattern set up in an Ioc container, it looks scary to people that don't know how Ioc containers work. But once you get it, it makes sense. Yes, single responsibility principle, open-close principle, Liskov substitution principle, interface segregation principle, and the dependency inversion principle. That is solid, Frankie. And yes, if you follow SRP, you basically have to use Dependency Inversion Principle in order to do it effectively. Otherwise, your code just gets nasty. The Interface Segregation Principle is also required for all those. Oh, give me a break, Will Bennett. I know those... do you have any idea how long I've been teaching Solid? Seriously, it's been like over a decade at this point. I would have started teaching it in like 2007-ish, probably? So, yeah, it's been over a decade that I've been teaching like software craftsmanship, TDD, and Solid at workshops around the country. So, hopefully I can come up with Solid off the top of my head. That would that would be pretty bad. All right. Okay, so we want to wire into Blast instead of that. Let's go ahead and exit out of this. I mean, plenty of you guys, those calendar images that we use at the beginning of the stream here, these, hang on, let me pop it up on the screen here. So stuff like this, keep in mind that that image is from a calendar that we did in, I think that's our 2011 calendar. So, this calendar image that we've got here, this actually was in our software craftsmanship calendar for the year 2011. Which means that for we created this slide in 2010. So that's the idea. So no, they're not all that new. What it was explained sort of made sense, but to implement. Oh yeah, so that's the reason why I recommend, Frankie, that in order to learn how an Ioc container works, I really recommend that you build one. So make a tiny application, build your own Ioc container, have it wire up and run, and suddenly Ioc will make so much more sense. So simple application, your own Ioc container, and you'll get it. It'll just suddenly click. That's why I have people build them as parts of workshops and things like that to learn about dependency inversion. And yes, Will Bennett is right. So in terms of how to structure your code and get it working, you won't get it right the first time, and heck, even once you've been doing it for a long time, you're still going to mess stuff up from time to time, which is why it's important to understand the principles, is because then you can look at it and be like, oh, yep, I did that wrong, I need to fix this, and you'll understand how to make the change to improve it. So that's the idea. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, start off with a small project and just follow Solid. Okay, so bot should be up and running again. Let's get rid of hype and derp. We're just gonna nuke these. They're going away. No more hype, no more derp. Nope, they're gone. Bye-bye, hype and derp. Okay, there we go. So now, if we were in this case, we want to call our animation display notification, call blast, and pass in blast type dot image path. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, Frankie, single responsibility actually gets you really far when you follow it nicely. And if you add open-close principle to that, it also gets you a lot of really cool stuff. But I will warn you, be careful not to implement open-close principle too early, or you'll just add additional complexity. Architecture, need more attention. We can look at them, Wheatlaw. Also remember these are principles, not rules. Yes, Will Bennett. That's, yep. Will Bennett's getting on the exact point that I just mentioned. Yes, you add additional complexity if you over-apply or too early apply these. These are principles. They're things that we strive towards, but we also need to understand that even they come with a cost. So in order to make something infinitely flexible, which is essentially what the open-closed principle is designed to do, you actually end up making a more complex system. So you need to know when to apply the open-close principle to add the just the right amount of complexity to allow you to extend it, and that allows maintainability. Taken too far, it decreases maintainability. So that's one thing you want to make sure you get. Wheatlol. So if anyone wants to actually catch up on those, keep in mind that Solid Saturdays is a series that we're doing, and this is the 5th one. So we've actually already done single, open, close, Liskov substitution, interface segregation, and we're now doing dependency inversion. So if you want to check those out, they're in the video section here on Twitch or on YouTube in a playlist, and they are going live on there a little slower than they are on Twitch. So if you're on YouTube, hi! This is like a week or two later. But anyway, the following weeks we're still going to do Solid Saturdays, but obviously since we're done with the solid principles, we're going to do other related principles instead. So other principles and guidelines that we want to follow in our code, and we're going to talk about them, why they're important, and again start coding while discussing that concept and trying to focus on it a little bit. So I am extracting out the hard dependency we had on exactly which blasts this blast command was able to do. So we've removed hype and derp and are moving that to the database. So these are getting injected in now. So we've removed that dependency, and it is now coming in through our repository, so we can load that in after the fact. So we're no longer taking this hard dependency on that concept. But you need to, if you slack, you end up with more of a Frankie Stein, yes! That is actually goes along with one of the other principles that we are big fans of here, and that is called the Boy Scout rule, which really is about making sure that you're always improving things. So it's about discipline is one of the most important skills that any dev team can actually have. It is very easy to find you. Thank you. You probably did. Wheatlol. Do I have a Wheatlol, I'm scheduling more stuff. I haven't scheduled them yet. I'm planning on scheduling those this weekend. So expect our GitHub page, which I'm going to link again. But on our Streamlabs or StreamInfo page here on this. So for anyone who's wondering, if you want to know what the content of our streams is, I'm going to be updating our StreamInfo section here with our new schedule. So you'll notice right now it's fairly empty. That's why I need to actually fill it in. And I just put it here because it's an easy spot for me to just edit that's related to everything else that we do here. So it's out on GitHub. So today is our dependency inversion principle, and I'm going to put our topics and guests that we've invited into this list as we get everything scheduled. So I'm going to add some in this weekend, and our furthest out one is we have Guy Royce, who I need to link his name there. But we're going to be doing some machine learning stuff with Guy in about a month. So that'll be fun. We've been looking forward to having Guy on the stream for a while. Okay, so image path, blast. Let's make this actually work. So let's head on over to the overlay. And what did we call that method? We called it blast. So in our overlay, we should have wired up this. We said on blast, we're going to say do blast. We're going to get rid of derp. And this is going to be... Ooh, can we call that, actually? I think we can do blast image path. And I think that is literally the only change we need to make to our JavaScript to make this new one work. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Just to make sure it is absolutely dead, I am killing the process for the bot. So the bot should be off now. Just to check. Nope, it's not dead yet. Bot, go ahead and die, please. Let's do this. We're going to, like, totally kill it. Okay, yep, totally off now. What is the signature of on? Oh, do you want me to? I can bring it up, Wheatlaw. I'll get you the IntelliSense on that. But on is part of our client for connecting to SignalR from JavaScript. So SignalR, for anyone who doesn't know, is a library that allows us to have persistent communication between our client and server, and it is actually done through the best medium it can. So it will try to use WebSockets if available, but it'll revert down to lower things like polling and such if it can't. In our case, it should always have WebSockets available to it. Okay, so this is up and running again. So on, you wanted to see on. Nope. Hang on. I'm getting resharpered right now. On, is it not going to tell me? Alright, event string listener function. There you go. So we're listening for the blast event, and that's the function that's going to get called when the event happens. Okay. Oh, give me a break, Fraggle Rock. That is not... Oh, man, that is so little. Yes, you're right. You're right. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, man. That is really not that bad. Alright, let's go ahead and build, and then we're going to run this, assuming that build works. Based on an issue from the... Okay, hang on, Will Bennett, do you mean the Code Rushed stream, as in, like, Mark Miller's stream, or do you mean when we did our stream here on our channel on Code Rush? Because we did a whole stream where we just had Mark on... Okay, you're talking about Mark's on... Yeah, so, could you use SignalR to return a list of files in a folder on the server? Yes, Will Bennett, you absolutely could. Yep, you can totally do that. And I should probably be nice and mention to people that I will be on Mark's stream on Monday. So before my stream, I'll be on Mark's stream. And I'm going to let him know that I can't be there that long because I'm going to have to prep for my stream too. So... So I will be streaming twice on Monday. Once on Mark's channel, once on mine. So Monday will be a crazy day. Oh, thanks, Will Bennett. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Awesome guy, that Will Bennett. Always up for sharing credit with people. RIP. Alright, let's take a look at what's going on with this code. Oh, I didn't refresh the thingy. Oh, never mind. That may have worked. Hang on! So, for anyone who doesn't know, over top of this entire screen is actually a transparent web page that you guys can't see. And because of that, what I am actually able to do is put whatever the heck I want on it, including an HTML canvas. So there's an HTML canvas over top of my entire screen here. And now that I've told it to reload, yes! It works! It's alive! Alive, I tell you! Okay, there we go. We have extracted our dependency, and this craziness now works. Hype, hype, hype. There we go. So there's some excitement for you. All the hypes, and sorry about the lag, everybody, because that's probably lagging you. Okay, so... where do we want to go with this? How did I leave those tests? That is handle command should in that, so let's go take a look at the tests that we added right here. And that returns that, calls those, yep. And if it didn't get one, it calls that. Okay, cool. That code is super, super simple now. Wheatlaw, come on. The least you could have done was added the kappa on there. But you're right. We did switch what our dependency was. So we still do have a dependency. And if we actually wanted to resolve this dependency, the way we would do it is instead of passing in the repository, what we would instead do is take in a set of those data entity objects. But keep in mind that the dependency we have now, instead of being a dependency on those concrete values of the hype and the derp and those specific things, we now have a dependency on an abstraction, which is the iRepository, and that is a better dependency. So that is not no dependency, that is a better dependency. So that is part of the point. That is an abstraction. We're supposed to depend on abstractions, which we did. Better. Not perfect. So part of the dependency inversion there is the idea that we did have concrete dependency on those types. I mentioned when we talked at the beginning about what are dependencies, one of the dependencies you have is on your concrete values. When you new up an object, when you create new objects, that's a dependency on those objects. You can also have dependencies on concepts, dependencies on libraries, dependencies on statics, dependencies on a framework. Actually, Frankie, it's just a dependency on caffeine. Not just coffee. Some people drink tea, some people drink coffee, some people drink Mountain Dew, some people drink Jolt Cola, some people drink Red Bull. I drink Pepsi, Coke Zero, Mountain Dew, any kind of horrible substance that will destroy my body but is ultimately delicious. Yeah, some people drink Wheatlaw with like caffeine pills. Drink water Wheatlaw with caffeine pills. Definitely the way to do it. Caffeine pills. There you go. Don't overconsume caffeine. It literally can kill you, I think. But that might go for anything, including water. Okay, so move blast images, blast types to database. Okay. Next thing we need to do as a part of this. Ooh, can I explain enums? I will probably explain enums in one of our Learn to Code episodes. I need to schedule some more of those. But recursive, if you want me to explain enums, first off, make sure you get a reminder to attend my Learn to Code series here. We do a Learn to Code in C# series where we cover a lot of the basics and things like that. And yeah, Wheatlaw, they sort of are. They're basically integers. But we'll be explaining that kind of stuff on there. And if you have suggestions for the stream, like specific topics you want us to cover, and it can be on those streams, head on over to our stream info section and go to the issues, and feel free to toss it in there in that. Alright. Yes, Wheatlaw, I was oversimplifying. Okay, so that does that. Let's give ourselves an edit page while we're at it, because why not? Edit page? No, I'm not going to wire that up yet. So now, since we created this and it works with data the way it does, let's add the fail command. So, first things first, let's check out what images we have available to us. Did I pull that one in yet? I did not. So, we are going to say DevChatter Twitch emotes. So Twitch emotes DevChatter right here. And OneDrive, DevChatter. Where is it? No, it's not here. It's hang on. It's there. And then web project, root images, all files, and that is the fail emote. Okay. Now we have the fail emote downloaded into that spot. 10 grams of caffeine is lethal for a normal person. There you go, Twitchloff. I knew there was some amount for it. So now that we have that in that spot, we can go over to our database, and we're going to add fail to our list of things that we can use here. Table, blast types, view data. Click, copy, fail, fail, DevChatter, copy, paste, fail emote, there we go. As I said, we need an edit page for that at some point. Lucky number 7, hello, welcome. Good evening. Okay, so we just wired that up. This should now probably work already. Let's go ahead and try it. Blast, fail. Hey, there it is. Works right off the bat. So we can now fail with the best of them. So now our problem is that fail doesn't work. So we need to add an alias for that. So the way that we do that is our system, we actually have... So let me just show you in the... So you're watching the chat right now. We have an alias command that allows us to alias another command. So the blast command is the one we want to alias. So let's say alias add blast. The name we want to give it is fail. And we want to pass the parameter fail to the blast command. So that's what we're passing in. So alias add blast fail fail is what we need to type in. Now this should have created the fail command, but I think I need to restart the bot right now to get it to accept these, because we don't have, we have one of the bugs we need to fix is that one. So let's say fail, and there it goes. So the fail alias now works. And we can just do that in order to get that running. So we now have fail, we have derp, and we have hype. So all of those wired up, and it works pretty well. For anyone who's in chat and is new here, wait, Chrome gave us the old tabs back? I hope so. I liked Chrome the way it was before. They moved my cheese. So for anyone who is new in here, a couple of things I want to mention. Our Discord, which I just linked in chat, is a great place to chat with me and the other developers here on our stream. So if you want to talk to me or the other developers and chat about programming, what libraries you're interested, what languages you like, frameworks, different things like that, our Discord's actually a fantastic place to do that. We're nearing 300 developers that are in there, so lots of people to talk with, lots of good content, lots of good fun stuff going on there. If you're interested in contributing to any of our projects or just taking a look at our code, a lot of it is out on GitHub at github.com/devchatter. So if you're interested in contributing to this, send us a pull request. We'll review it and probably get it merged in if if we like the way the code's set up. If we don't, we'll usually tell you what to change in order to get it brought in. Other things, if you are interested in seeing any of our old videos, including our previous videos on Solid in here, they're in the video section here on Twitch, or you can find some of them over on YouTube at youtube.com/c/devchatter. Okay, so now that I mentioned a couple of things, let's get back to this coding. Lucky number 7 has $1,000 of AWS credit. Oh, well, yeah. Use Lambda, don't use database stuff. Can you get Windows 10 VMs on AWS? Ooh, I don't know. AWS Lambda happens to be quite cheap. If you have low number of requests and database thingies, it gets really expensive. Oh, Janiscu, yeah, no, I don't have a mug thing. Maybe I should at some point. But we do have mugs and stuff. So, okay. So we pulled that in there, and we even added a new one, so that's awesome. Add the fail emote. And we may move that kind of stuff into the database at some point, but for now it's right there. Wait, what is this, 7? Hang on a second. Look at number 7. As an emote I don't recognize. Lucky NC? I don't recognize that emote. That's a weird one. Yeah, I don't have a mug emote, guys. I need to get a mug emote at some point, so we'll have to reach Twitch Partner before we can do that. Because I don't want to drop Hype. Hype is probably the most versatile one. Yeah, Janiscu, the stupid part is, I was telling Fritz for like ever before he got a Stream Deck that he needed one. And then it's like, he does finally get... I'm like, geez, man, do you know how long I've been telling you to get that thing? It is the best. Stream Decks are awesome. Alright, so let's send in a pull request for this. So, move last info into database. So that's what we did. Okay. Okay, so what do we want to do with the end of the stream here? Let's see, do we start on another thing? Spin command, I don't really start on those. A lot of those are too big. Okay. Well, alright, so I guess in that case, here's what we're going to do for today. I am going to tell you all that on Monday, I am going to be a guest on the Code Rush stream, so that is Mark Miller's stream. We're going to be doing some SignalR code, and then we're going to be back to our stream on Monday. So, should be good. We stream, as many of you know, 4 times a week on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Our Saturdays are usually our solid Saturdays. We like that as our, focus on some kind of a principle kind of day. And the other days of the week don't have a specific theme. Usually what I try for is, one stream a week is going to be more beginner level, follow along kind of thing. One of them I like to be one where we do programming exercises of some kind, so not actually project work. And so that means about half of our streams should be working on this project, and the other half should be one-off things where you can see new code being written, so greenfield stuff, and should be quite fun. Let's see. Other than that, if you have not done so yet, check out our Discord. I linked it there in chat. It's a chat application where you can talk with the other developers here on the stream. If you want to contribute to our projects, take a look at our GitHub. If you want to follow DevChatter and get notifications about stuff that's going on the channel, Twitter is over there. If you want to follow me, I'm at Brandonius. You can see my name written right about there. That's what my name is on Twitter. My name's obviously, Brendan, as it says right here, but that's my Twitter name. Other things to mention, our Learn to Code in C# series is actually quite good. We have had a lot of people show up to that and learn a lot about programming in C#. So if you are either a beginner or just new to C#, or if you want to go back and learn some of the fundamentals you missed on C#, that is a great place to do it. If you are interested in contributing to this channel and helping out, some great ways you can do it are telling people about it, tweeting about it and things like that, or just showing up here and watching the channel and chatting with us while you're here. All of that stuff helps. If you want to go further, you can subscribe to the channel, cheer with bits. You can pick up DevChatter merchandise, like these awesome I'm Coding mugs with this derpy little Chatosaurus coding on his laptop with his little grabbers because his arms are too short to reach the keyboard. And links posted in the chat for all that stuff. There are also links down below the stream. And additionally, we're going to be setting up some stuff for our patrons on Patreon. So our patrons on Patreon are our greatest supporters because they have, pledged support to continually contribute to the stream and are really, really awesome. We're going to be setting up some rewards for them. Specifically, what I'm going to try to do in streams is some of our patrons, we're going to try to bring them in by having them actually in Visual Studio. So we're going to share access to them using VS Live Share so they can actually look around the code as we develop. So if I'm doing something and I jump to a different screen on the stream, they can go look at another file and they can, they don't have to wait for me to go back to it. If they want to go see how something's working, they can just go take a look. So if you're interested in getting access to the code while we're streaming, as soon as I can get that running in a nice, secure manner, which is up to the VS Live Share team, not me, but as soon as we can do that, I will try to start bringing people in. With that, I want to click a couple of buttons here on my Stream Deck, like this one that triggers our credits, and I want to thank you all for showing up to the stream. We had, as usual, some good support from our moderators, which interestingly I need to mention S&B because it missed him. But Lucky Number 7 is also one of our moderators. We had a bunch of people follow the channel today, so thank you for clicking that follow button. We greatly appreciate it, as that does help us out here a lot. And Sean Wright, thank you for the subscription, the Twitch Prime sub. You are now a Chatosaurus in an egg and have access to our hype emote. So please enjoy. Everyone, we will be back on Monday, so enjoy the rest of your weekend. Make sure you do something fun. And happy coding, everyone. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks, Will. And Twitchlove, thank you for the 100 biddies. Glad you enjoyed the stream today. Take care, everyone.